Welcome everyone, welcome back. This is webinar number 3 of our advanced series for futures traders using the ADAS platform. And today's series of our second marathon is going to be all about the combination of VWAP and already familiar tools as the volume profile and the footprint chart. So 3 powerful volume-based tools that we are learning how to combine for the better intraday scalping and also swing decisions. If you have been with us through the entire marathon earlier and the first 2 webinars already that we hosted, you already know the basics of ADAS and volume analysis as well. And if you watched the first marathon that we did in April, you are already the intermediate in using the volume profile. Of course, if you applied it in practice and tried it out. Now we are going to be kicking up with a notch of blending those tools into one powerful strategy. And the first things first, before we're going to get started, can we make a quick tech check to make sure that everything is working fine and you can properly hear and see me and my screen as well? If everything is working good, can you please put a plus in the chat? Just one plus in the chat is going to be more than enough for me to know that you can hear me, you can see me, the screen is working fine, and we can get started and dive into the topic of today's webinar. Thank you so much. Thank you. Mohammed is here with us. Welcome. Nemsa is here. Good to see you. Dmitry, Swirls, Kyle, Michael, Repairman. Hi, Lou. Welcome. Welcome. Good to see all of you. Good to see you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you for the feedback. Now I know that everything is working and we can get started. Okay, so let's go through the quick context before going deeper into the topic of today's webinar. So in our previous webinars, we laid the groundwork. So we were exploring the volume profile basics and perhaps touching an order flow as well in the footprint, especially in the marathon number 1. So you all by now should be very comfortable with the ADAS platform. So like opening charts, adding indicators, and so on. You already have several workspaces to work for and to work upon and explore more, one from this marathon and several from the first one. And you are familiar with the fundamental concepts like support, resistance, reading, volume, clusters, and footprint basics. If you haven't watched the first marathon, the playlist is on the ADAS YouTube channel. So go to the ADAS YouTube channel, search for the playlist for the volume and order flow marathon number 1. Today, though, we will be building on that foundation that we created earlier. We will be starting with some slides covering the base key principles and then jump into the live ADAS screen share to see everything in action, just like all of you like and enjoy. And by the end of today's webinar, which is approximately going to last 60 minutes, you will understand how to leverage VWAP and volume profile together for intraday planning and execution. Okay? So to kick the things off, I'd love to know who of you here and who of you are here, what do you trade, right? So what is your primary market, the one that you trade? Can you type in the chat whether you are focused on, for example, mini S&P 500, ES, or gold, or 6E, so Euro futures, or crypto, for example, or something else? So what do you focus on? What do you trade the most? Because knowing this will help me also tailor examples to our audience in the later part of our webinar. So, okay, go ahead. For those of you who didn't drop it yet, so go ahead, drop your market of the choice. Futures, great, but which futures? I trade, for example, GC, oil, mini S&P 500, 6E, 6B. This is 90% of all my trade. This is the core of what I trade. What is it for you? Okay, NASDAQ, stock, okay, gold, crypto, gold and Bitcoin, 6E, in Euro USD, okay, and mini S&P 500, gold, ES, GC, demo, good. Practice on demo a lot until you feel comfortable and confident with both your mental aspect of the trading and also the technical system. ES and NQ, Ivan. Dobry день. Crypto, gold, SPY, okay, good. Thank you for sharing it. Okay, I see. Okay, I can switch the market. You should trade the market that works best for you. Oh, 6E and 6S. Nice. I don't commonly see people who trade 6S as their primary market of a choice, so that's very interesting. Вітаю, Івана. Дуже рада вас бачити. Okay, so let's kick it off. I see a very good mix of people who trade crypto, S&P 500, NQ, right? Some of you 6E and a few GC traders as well. As always, gold is one of the most popular as well. So even some NASDAQ, for example, and 6S, so Swiss franc futures, this is really nice. And that's perfect because VWAP and the volume profile are applicable across all these markets. So, okay, let's get started. And with a brief refresher, first of all, on each tool in the introduction to the VWAP. And then we will be going exploring how to use them in the tandem, in the combination. So first things first, right? What is VWAP? VWAP, which stands for the volume weighted average price, and simply put in is an average price of the market over a given period of time that you choose, weighted by volume, which is extremely important point. And unlike simple moving average that a lot of people mistake it with, that VWAP essentially gives more weight to prices with a higher trading volume, which is exactly what is important for us as a volume-based traders on the ADAS platform, right? Just 1 second, sorry, one technical interruption for 10 seconds. So this means that VWAP tells us basically the average price at which the majority of the volume was traded. Okay, so the average price at which the majority of the money was invested in the market. This is really important. And this means essentially that it's a benchmark where many institutional traders trade and watch those zones. So, in fact, major institutional investors, even proprietary trading firms and algorithmic strategies like high-frequency trading robots, they pay a very close attention to the VWAP. They often also use VWAP as a core to their trade execution system and to gauge the market strengths or the market weakness. So why does VWAP matter? And why are we covering this as a part of our second marathon? You can think of VWAP as a fair value for a selected period of time. If the current price right now is above VWAP, the middle line of VWAP, which is an example on top of the chart, buyers have largely been in control. So the price is higher than VWAP is where the most volume was traded, right? So the most volume was traded lower and the price has been pushed higher. If you are buying above VWAP though, as a trader, you are paying more than the average trader did, which is not always a great feeling and definitely not always the best idea. Conservatively, if the price is below VWAP, it implies that sellers were in control and many longs might be a good deal right now because it is lower than the average market price. Okay, so relatively to the day's average, essentially. Traders use VWAP as a reference point, where the price above VWAP means it's a bullish bias, but very carefully because you do not want to pay much higher than the average person did. Whether it's below VWAP is a bearish bias, generally speaking, but also you don't want to be selling much lower price than the average seller had sold this specific asset with. So VWAP is especially popular with the day traders and institutional traders alike, for example, as a reference point for the intraday trend. And unlike the plain moving average, so exponential or simple moving average or Bollinger Bands, for example, VWAPs in comparison of volume inside of their calculation of this specific tool makes it standout tool for the volume analysts. And since it reflects where a significant amount of money has actually changed hands, not just the price movement itself. Because if you have ever traded with a simple exponential moving average, it doesn't give you any other information than the one that you can already see on the chart. So it takes a certain amount of candles, it divides that, right, simply or exponentially, a little bit different formula, but VWAP incorporates volume. And this is why I choose it for my personal analysis. Okay, so let's quickly recall how VWAP is calculated. So don't worry, there is no heavy math on the slides beyond this. This is the only math that you will be able to see here during this webinar. But essentially, it's important to understand where it comes from and what are you looking at when you are analyzing the charts. As we talked about in the previous webinars, a lot of people ask the wrong questions. When they trade and they learn the trading system, they ask what and how instead of why. Now, when I trade, I like to understand why. Like if I'm basing my trading decision upon this specific tool and I'm putting my money on the line, I want to know, what am I doing? Like, what is this? What does it mean? And why is the price supposed to go up or down from this very moment? So I like to understand the answer for the question why instead of only how and what. And that's what we are doing here today. So essentially, the VWAP equals the cumulative price X volume divided by the cumulative volume over a given period of time. At a very start of every single set trading session, VWAP begins at the opening price, since there is no primary volume traded to that. And as each new trade happens in the market, it factors into the average. So by the end of the trading day, you get the volume weighted average price of all the trades during that trading session. ARAS does this calculation for you automatically, of course, so you don't really need to know the formula to trade it. But I love, again, you to know that this is where it comes from, and this makes sense if we are looking for the specific price reaction from this very tool. On the opposite hand, if you change the calculation of the VWAP, it's not going to be calculated from the beginning of the trading day, but for example, from the beginning of the trading week. And it's going to take the average volume and the price over the week or over the months or over the contract. Those periods of time can be adjusted in the ADAS, in the indicator settings, which I'm going to be showing you a little bit later during the practice part. So to summarize, this very tool, VWAP, is a dynamic intraday benchmark. That's how you can make it as a note, the dynamic intraday benchmark. It's great for instantly seeing who is in control, buyers or sellers in the market, and it provides natural support or resistance levels because, again, it's weighting the volume that was traded in the market. So many large players execute trades around VWAP, buying slightly below it and selling above it to get an average price for their orders without moving the market too much. So that's if we are talking institutions and big traders. And you can think about VWAP as a magnet. Price often gravitates towards it in consolidations, for example, as you can see on the two upper examples. So if the price consolidates, it's going to naturally gravitate toward the VWAP because it's an average volume-weighted price. Okay, that's a price which is interesting for the big market players. And any trends happening will push the price away from VWAP. So when the trend happens, you will see that the price goes further from the VWAP in the strongest market moves. So can we make a quick show of hands, or rather show of your keyboard? How many of you have already used VWAP on your chart ever? So if VWAP is a part of your daily trading toolkit, can you type VWAP in the chat? And if not, if this is the first time you are hearing about that or the first time you're going to be trying it out, can you please type no in the chat? So type VWAP if you're already using it, or type no if that's the first time you're going to be using it today. So I'm going to also type it for us. Yeah. Okay, VWAP, great. We see lots of you who've been using some. Okay, Ali is using anchored VWAP. Great. David is going to be learning for the first time. Many times I try using it but lost. Okay, yeah, good. I hope after today's webinar you will be able to incorporate it to your trading system and get benefits from it as well as a profit. Okay, so Great. Thank you so much for the answers. I understand where we stand right now. For those of you who already use it, you will learn how to combine it with other tools for even more insights. And for a few no responses that we have, hopefully by the end of today, you will be considering giving it a try on the Aras platform. Okay. So as we build up the foundation of understanding the concept of VWAP, next, let's refresh the volume profile. We've covered aspects of the volume profile in our first marathon, so this should sound familiar. And we are also not going to dive super deep into this, but cover the basics so all of you understand where it comes from. And if you want to learn the volume profile in depth, please go to the playlist on the Aras YouTube channel where you find the first marathon hosted by me. And there is a specific separate whole webinar which is dedicated to the volume profile and TPO. Okay, so if you haven't watched it yet, you can find it there and rewatch all 7 webinars at your convenience completely for free. Incredible. So as a reminder, before we're going to dive into the practice part, volume profile is a tool that shows how volume is distributed across different price levels over a chosen period of time. So in other words, instead of plotting volume over time by time, so candle by candle, like for example, the time-based volume indicator on the bottom of your screen, which all of you have seen, all of us have used it for more or less, right? A volume profile is essentially the horizontal price-based volume because it plots volume horizontally at each and every single price level, at each and every single tick. So it tells us how many contracts were traded at each and every single tick in the market within the chosen period of time. Whether it's the normal volume tells us how much interest, decreased or increased interest, was traded over a specific candle. So that's based on time, and the volume profile is based on price. You can think about the volume as creating a histogram on the vertical price axis. So the longest horizontal bars in the volume profile, the zone where the histogram rises and extends, this indicates prices where a lot of trading occurred. And we are going to be calling them the high volume node, okay? And the other one, the short bars, where there is barely no volume and the histogram is like this, right? On the bottom of the screen, for example, that's called the volume, the low volume node. So traders often refer to the high volume prices as areas of value or acceptance or high interest zones, and the low volume prices as the areas of rejection because people do not want to trade in those areas. So if you heard the terms like high volume node, HVN shortened, right? Or for example, LVN, which stands for the low volume node, that's what they mean. Peaks and valleys in the volume profile. Timo, thank you so much. Thank you. The marathon is going to stay. The recording will be there, so you can always go back and rewatch the necessary information, repeat it as many times as you need. So let's quickly walk through the key elements of the volume profile and then transition into combining both. So the key elements of each and every single volume profile histogram, no matter if you are using the drawing tool in Aras platform, or you are using the anchored volume profile, or you are using the TPO and profile indicator, for example, or other combinations of volume profile in Aras platform. That's exactly why I love Aras, because we have so many ways to represent and visualize the volume that it's practically impossible to miss out on very important information in the market. Unless we ignore it, of course, but practically, if you are using it correctly, it's impossible to miss out on important information. And volume profile is one of those. So the key elements include the POC, the point of control, the price level where the highest traded volume in that specific period of time, like for example, during the day, during the week, or during the months. Value area, so VA, their range of prices around the point of control that typically covers 70% of the total volume. And this percentage can be adjusted, but 70% is by default. And accordingly to this, we have value area high and value area low, which mark the upper and the lower bounds of where most trading happened, so the value area boundaries. Prices outside of the value area had relatively low volume, and often yesterday's value area or point of control can act as a support or resistance the day later, so today, because they represent the consensus zones from the prior session. So in practice, when we say the volume profile, we mean volume by price. And it's a very powerful and flexible instrument for analyzing actual market activity and finding key levels. So can we do one more quick interaction before we're going to move on? How many of you have already, after the first webinar, first marathon, incorporated volume profile in your daily analysis? Can you please type VP? I'm going to go ahead and do it as the first one. VP in the chat if you are already using the volume profile on daily basis. And can you type no if you are still watching and you don't know how to apply it perhaps and not yet using it actively in your trading. Okay, great. I'm starting to see lots of VP responses, which is not surprising because you are all volume analyst enthusiasts here, of course, from Aras. Okay, some no's as well. Great, great, great. By the end of today, you might be convinced to add the volume profile to your toolbox. Okay, so if you attended the previous marathon, the previous webinars, you have tried probably basic volume profile. So today we will refine how to use them alongside with the VWAP. Okay, some no's and lots of VPs. Great, fantastic. Amazing, yes, great combination. Game Odyssey, great combination. So how do the VWAP and volume profile differ? Like, what is the difference between those two if they are both based on the volume? Okay, so the main difference is in what and how exactly do they measure. Now, the simplest way to put it is that VWAP is one number or one line summarizing the whole session's trading, whereas the volume profile is detailed distribution of volume at each price level. So VWAP gives you a continuous average price over time, and volume profile gives you the breakdown by the price. So they're related in that they both revolve around volume, but they offer different perspectives on the same information. Okay? And another way to contrast it could be that VWAP is dynamic and time sensitive, whereas, well, it's basically given the real-time feedback as the price moves. Okay, so for example, sudden surges of volume comes at the higher prices, VWAP will jump up accordingly to that. Volume profile, however, is static for the chosen period of time until you start a new volume profile. So it's more about the context of price levels and less about the immediate trend. So this is the differences between the VWAP and volume profile. If you want, you can take a screenshot of that slide. But despite the difference, what is actually similar and why do we use them together? Well, we use them together because, as you might guess, they accompany and complement each other's weaknesses. So VWAP tells us if the market is above or below the fair value and tends to act as a real-time pivot. So it's great to gauging intraday trend bias. Like, for example, if the market stays above the VWAP midline all morning, that's bullish. And buyers are in control, and you might only look for longs on pullback to VWAP or their resistance bands. On the other hand, the volume profile gives us the specific price zones of interest, so support and resistance based on the high volume clusters. For instance, for example, the yesterday's point of control or value area might be a key battleground today, and overnight high volume node can act as a support or resistance for the London session, which we might be using. So when combined both of them, you can use the volume profile to identify the key price zones or levels where a big amount of trading happened, a big amount of money was invested in the market. So for example, the institutional footprints and so on. And then you can use the VWAP to judge the current market stance relative to those levels. So, for example, if the price is approaching the major high volume node from the below, okay, and that node is near that today's VWAP, you've got the confluence. So VWAP, which is a dynamic support in this case, overlapping with already previously established volume support zone and potentially strong, like strong sell level, okay, if it bounces from the below, and buy level if it bounces from the above. So on the flip side, okay, if, for example, you will be able to see that the price is well above the VWAP, and thus let's say that we have a very strong rally in the market, but you can see that it nearing a low volume area from the profile. So for example, the vacuum area, right, it could slice through quickly until hitting the next high volume region where sellers potentially might step in. So it also helps you to understand when it's the time to stay away from the market instead of trying to catch a trade. So it's the combination of both of them, right? Both VWAP and volume profile, they are both volume-based tools, but they do different things. VWAP can give you the dynamic anchor and it adjusts during the live session. Volume profile shows you where the volume was concentrated, but it doesn't change once it's fixed, and it happened already before. And you can use them as a confluence and as their reason to not enter the bad setup as well. So let's have a look at the few screenshots, examples, before moving to the real charts and adding those instruments in the ARAS platform. And one more advanced idea is essentially using multiple VWAPs on your chart and multiple volume profiles, but I'm going to show you this when we move into practice. Right here on the screenshot, you can see the volume profile for the week. It's a 30-minute time frame chart, and the volume profile, which is built over the weekly period of time. Okay, so during the week, we see that the majority of the volume was traded at the zone 7170/7200. That's an oil CL futures contract. And we see the price dove below it with a one strong candle. Now, later that day or the next day, right, the price comes back to this high volume node. And the high volume node itself, as well as the value area low, which is a gray line you can see around the level 7170. This is their sign to go short from the resistance, which is high volume node, and from the value area low boundary being tested. As you can see, at the same time, they overlap with their VWAP middle line. So VWAP was exactly at the same area where the high volume node was and the value area low boundary. So this zone specifically was interesting for us because both instruments were given the confluence. And the lower deviation of the VWAP at the bottom, which is the dynamic gray line, at the level 7114 as a price mark, this could be your target. So as the price can bounce from the deviations of the VWAP, this could be your target, and this would be at that very moment well over 100 ticks move for the CL futures contract, which is a pretty good deal for the intraday trade. Right, you can easily go to a 1-to-2, 1-to-3 risk-to-reward ratio depending on the type of the entry that you use. Later in the week, one second. Later during the week, we can see the situation get developed. And after the period of consolidation, the price was able to break through above the high volume node and also focused above the current weekly VWAP, because this VWAP is also calculated for the weekly period. So this gives us the information the majority of the volume was executed lower, and there was a big high volume node between the level 7170/7200, where also was the high interest for the majority of the market participants. So we can take a conclusion that if the price goes back and retests this high volume node, as well as overlapping with the VWAP being tested from the bottom, This can be our long entry after break and retest, both of weekly high volume node, low value area low, and the retest of the weekly VWAP. So this is an example of how we can use those two assets, right? Those two instruments in combination for finding a very powerful market setups. One moment. I'm still a little bit of sick, so I'm recovering, and I hope you know that I'm doing my best for you on this webinar. So can we put a plus in the chat if you understand how in this situation VWAP and volume profile gave their confluence to each other as an entry point both for the short and later for the long from the same zone during the week? Can you please put a plus in the chat if we are in the same page? And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to type them in the chat as well, because I'm going to be monitoring the chat during the rest of our webinar, but also in the end of the webinar. As always, we are going to have the Q&A session where you will be able to ask all the questions if necessary, and I'm going to do my best to answer all of them. Lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you for the feedback in the chat. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. So once again, another idea is to essentially use multiple VWAPs and multiple volume profiles. For example, some traders put their yesterday's VWAP as a reference into today's trading day. So for example, the yesterday's VWAP and the closing of the VWAP in the end of the day is sometimes seen as an important level from the trading day as a support or resistance. So if today's day opens far from it, price might gravitate towards the yesterday's VWAP middle line or treat it as a support and resistance as it pulls back there. Another one in the combination with a daily VWAP is a weekly VWAP that people usually combine together. So that's a volume weighted average over the whole entire trading week from the market opening on Sunday night. And if you are midweek and the price is far from the weekly VWAP, sometimes there is a tendency to revert later in the week. So if there is no trend continuation, obviously based on the fundamentals. Those main, our main star for today will be though the weekly VWAP and weekly volume profile. However, right, to avoid the conclusion, however, just know that you can explore more on your own. And by the way, for those of you who stick till the end of the webinar, you will be able to download the workspace that I will be using already with VWAP and volume profile over your chart, both for swing trading and for the intraday trading charts. The link to download this workspace will appear in our description to the video 30 minutes after the end of the webinar. So you can access this by the same link that appeared in your email and by the same link that you access today's webinar. And in the recordings and the descriptions, you will be able to find the link to download specifically workspace. Make sure that you import it as a workspace, not as a template, okay? So, all right, we covered a portion of the strategy and a lot of theory. By now, you might be thinking, okay, this is in theory, but show me how it looks on the chart. Okay, absolutely. Let's transition to the live demonstration part of the webinar. Make sure that you got your notepad, and even better, make sure that you have your ADAS platform opened and ready if you want to follow along. So I'm going to switch to my screen. There we go. So this is a GC chart currently. This is a gold 30-minute time frame, okay? And now as we are on the ADAS platform, let me show you how to add this indicator to your chart. Let me hide this one and imagine that we don't have anything on the chart, so we can go ahead and add it together with you, okay? So I have ADAS open here. I've prepared a couple of instruments. We're going to have a couple, look at a couple of instruments together. If you have a request, we can have a look at crypto as well. However, I personally do not trade crypto, right? I trade GC, M&E, S&P 500, 6E, 6B, Well, silver sometimes, but not crypto. But we likely won't have a time to go and do an examples of all of them, but we're going to have a couple of examples definitely on instruments that you are most interested in. So adding VWAP to your chart is pretty straightforward in ADAS platform. And you guys likely already understand it from the session earlier, but let's recap. In ADAS, if you open the indicators on the top of the screen, or you can type the Ctrl+I, there's a hotkey. Ali, seriously? Like, it's literally on the screen on top on the right corner, the name on the ADAS. Anyway, so you go to the indicators, and in the search tab, you search for the VWAP. You click on it twice, so it moves into their edit indicators window at the bottom of their screen. And then here you can adjust the period of time. So you can select the daily VWAP. You can select the weekly, monthly, all from the beginning of the chart, or the custom period of time. For the super fast scalping pace, for those of you who scalp, for example, on 1 minute or seconds charts, you can also use a 15, 30, and hourly time based VWAPs, which I don't personally recommend. I would recommend to start from the daily one if you are a scalper, and then if necessary, go in lower. And if you are an intraday, /swing trader, I'm suggesting to use weekly and monthly for the swing trading ideas. After you've selected the necessary period of time, let's stick with the weekly one for today. We go to mode, and we change the mode. Well, we don't change the mode to TWAP, right? We stay with VWAP, but if you want, you can also adjust the TWAP, which is a little bit different calculation. Volume type, we're going to stay as a total, okay? And we are going to go lower. You can adjust the color directions if you want to, which I am not going to select. So I want my VWAP to be one color. All the lines, if you want, you can select the color direction, and then the line of the VWAP is going to be changing the color every time that the price crosses as higher or lower. Now, we can also adjust the panel and the visual type on how it's represented, okay? And upper fills and so on. Now, by default, you have several deviations. ADAS offers you 3 deviations from the ADAS platform. Okay, I only use for my trading the deviation number 1, so the first deviation of VWAP. However, you can explore also the second deviation and third deviation. Whether it's a third deviation, I personally find for myself less useful. The maximum I would go for is the second deviation of the VWAP. Okay, but I would stick with the first one for the purposes of today's webinar. I'm going to delete this one, and I'm going to go ahead and unlock this specific one, which we already had added, because that's a settings that we're going to be using today. And the settings will be essentially weekly, with the VWAP mode, with a volume type total, with the unclicked color direction. And at the bottom, I choose the VWAP line color as black, as well as the lower deviation 1 line color as gray. So we have the deviation number 1, and we have the middle VWAP line applied. So you click apply, and it's going to be added to your chart. Now, besides this, what I want to add to my chart is the volume profile. So we have several ways to add the volume profile into your chart. One of those is the drawing tool, the market profile and TPR on the ADAS platform, where you can see the volume distribution, for example, over this move to the upside, right? And you can plan like this kind of activity, like based on this kind of volume distribution. For the purpose of today's webinar, we're going to stick with the indicator. So it's automatically drawn for you, and you don't need to think how to place the volume profile over your chart correctly. So we go into the indicators window one more time, and in the search bar, you search for the market profile and the TPR. You can just type the TPR, and this indicator will be added. So you click on it twice until it's going to be added to your chart, just like this, right? By default, it's going to have the daily external period of time and the specific set of colors. Now let me delete this and open this one. So the one that we will be using today, and the one that you will be having in your workspace, is going to be with the following settings. the mode profile, the external period weekly, okay, the profile type volume specifically, and then you can adjust the profile colors. For me, it's great to make sure that we can still see the proper chart and it's not too bright for our eyes. The point of control line for me at the weekly volume profile is always blue. So wherever you see the blue line on my chart, it's a weekly point of control. Then I also have the value area lines as a gray line with the text color yellow, white. So those lines that you can see extended, those are the value areas from the current week and the previous weeks and so on. And I also go lower, and I unclick the cumulative values. So the label location I choose to hide, because the amount of contracts that was traded during this specific period of time is not necessary for me to know to make my conclusion. Okay, so then also beside this, on your workspace, you will have the daily point of control, which for the demonstration right now, I'm going to hide to not create the confusion. But the principle of using it is exactly the same. The daily point of control with a combination of VWAP and the first deviations above and below. And then beside this, you have the indicator on your workspace, which is called the maximum levels. Now, the maximum level indicator is the point of control for the specific period of time. So it does not draw the volume, it only draws their point of control for you, which is a simplified version of the volume representation, and it creates just one line on your chart. It keeps the chart clean and tidy without overlapping too many indicators, and it still shows you an important information. So I unlock the value, the maximum level, which is for the this one, which is on our chart, is for the current monthly point of control. I also added the maximum level point of control of the last months and the maximum level for the contract, which they are overlapping in this case. You can adjust the settings wherever it's comfortable for you. This is going to be the standard workspace that you will have, and you will have one more with the different periods of times for TPO and for the VWAP for the swing trading. This is specifically for the intraday trading setup that I'm using as a part of my trading setup, okay? So how in this case, right, how could we in this case use their current, like the situation, right? The current situation, how could we essentially analyze this specific market? Now, perhaps gold is not the best idea, so we're going to switch to a different to a different tool in a second. But what we are looking at is we are looking at the combination of the high volume node and overlap with the VWAP, either the middle line or the deviations. So as you can see here, for example, we have the VWAP line at 3328.9 currently. And if we would be just using VWAP without anything else, what we would be looking for, if we would be looking for the price to get here, use it as a support, and then essentially trade from it back to the upside towards the upper deviation of the VWAP. That is not how I use it, okay? So I want you to know that I always wait for the combination of the VWAP and the high volume node on the volume profile. So in this case, the highest volume nodes are here. This is the zone. And in this case, the other zone is right here. Technically, if the price goes down and the lower VWAP deviation at that time stays low here, then we could use this zone here as the zone to go long for gold. I'm not saying it will be, but if it happens, this could be a great scenario because we would have the combination of the lower VWAP deviation and the high volume node from the volume profile from the beginning of the week. And at the same time, we had a high volume node here from the beginning, from the last week as well, which is the reconfirming the importance of this specific zone. Now, in this case, the goal that we would be targeting would be the gravitation back towards the VWAP middle line, and then the first VWAP deviation from the top. So this could be our scenario. Now, besides this, what I was looking at earlier today is the short from here, this specific short situation we were looking at during the previous live that I was doing. Why? Because right here earlier today, we had the combination of the VWAP upper deviation line, and we had the weekly point of control, the current week. We had the high volume node here from the current week trading, and we had this consolidation here. If I place my volume profile over this specific consolidation, my point of control will be in the same exact level here. So this zone is also an important zone for me. So here I was looking for the short from this very zone, between the point of control of the week, point of control of this consolidation, and the upper VWAP deviation. The target here was quite short, right? Why? Because right here, the price, we see the price reacted on their high volume node also here and the previous weekly point of control. So at the worst entry, our take profit could be here around 110 ticks or 100 ticks. So from 100 to 110 ticks move on gold just in the morning from the combination of VWAP and the weekly point of control. Okay, so this is currently gold. Now let's go ahead and let's shift to another market, which I want to look at the 6E because I saw a lot of you trade Euro futures. So let's have a look at the current situation and the 6E and from the prism of volume profile and the VWAP. Let me see. The weekly point of control, this one, it's called the maximum levels indicator. The maximum level indicator draws only the maximum level, so the point of control for the specific period of time. And it only reflects it on the right side of your screen. Well, you can move it to the left side if you want as well, right? But it's essentially only the point of control, and you can select the period of time. I find this extremely useful because you can select the monthly, weekly, and specific volumes without overloading your chart. So I want my chart to stay clean and as much as like no indicators as possible, because I want to see the price action, which is the most important. So if I'm going to have the overload of volume profiles on top of each other, it's going to be disturbing my view on the market. Whereas in this case, it's super useful, keeps it clean, and 9512 SAM, you will have this workspace to download after the webinar is over. So you will have it already and you can check all the indicators. Okay. So currently the 6E, what we can see here, very interesting situation actually. I also was breaking it down earlier for myself. So we see that here was a huge volume cluster. We can see it already from the last week. Here is a huge volume profile accumulation. So we have the high value area high at the level of 17,850. And we have the point of control of this consolidation at 17,765. So this zone here is very interesting for the price to come back and to test. Where are we currently at? One moment. So where are we currently at? We see that the price was accumulating the volume. Here we had a small consolidation, the rejection of the upper deviation. And earlier today, the price broke through this high volume node. So right now, where is the volume related to the price? Can you let me know in the chat? Where is currently the volume related to the price? Above or below the price? So where is the majority of the volume at? Above the price or below the price? Let's type it in the chat. Below the price or above the price? On the price. Okay, well. On the price is like this. When the price is consolidating and the volume is, well, the majority of the volume is right here. This is the point of control of the week. This is the point of control of the current month. This is the VWAP line above, exactly. Hi, Lu. Yes, thank you so much. We have the high volume node here from the volume profile, so this shows it. And as you can see, the price already went below it and then comes back to retest this high volume node right here and the point of control. And it's also testing the VWAP from the bottom. So both VWAP and the point of control of the week and the high volume node is now right above the price, which is the confirmation for us for a short for both of these for both of these instruments at the same time. If you want to go more in depth, what you can do is you can also go ahead and check the footprint charts. So you can combine the VWAP with the market profile and volume profile and the 5-minute footprint chart as well. So we go ahead, we have a look at the footprint charts. From the first marathon, we know that we want to see the activity of the sellers kicking in the market and preferably the imbalances on the sell side as well, on the bid side. What we can see is that we had quite a bullish activity here. We have lots of bullish movement, right? Bullish footprint, and then it started mixing. And right now, just 5 minutes ago, and at the current footprint, we see the current 5-minute candle footprint is fully red, which shows us the activity of the sellers and the bid hitting the tape. We had a very important zone right here as well. So I would be considering for myself this as a signal to short 6E right now. So it's not a signal, please do your own analysis, but this would be for me a confirmation of the sell setup for the 6E futures right now. 1 second. Where's my here? Down arrow. Why? Because we are rejecting this high negative delta cluster. We have already the red footprint, and on the 30-minute time frame, we have the combination of the VWAP above the price. We have the point of control of the week. We have a high volume node. So this is a live example of the current setup where I will be having 2 targets. My first target will be the lower deviation of the VWAP right here. So when the price hits my first lower deviation of the VWAP, this is going to be a first target that I'm going to be aiming for. And if I can see the rejection, right, then this is going to be where I'm exiting the trade. If I see that the price flies through it, then my second target will be right here at around the level of 1765. And I always also give the price 2-3 ticks distance. So I would be exiting 2-3 ticks above the lower first deviation of VWAP, and I would be exiting 2-3 ticks higher than the point of control of this specific consolidation. Or if I go on the footprint chart and I can see here in the zone already bullish footprint, and I'm going to be exiting manually without waiting for the price to hit the point of control specifically, because sometimes the price reverses from the zone and not from the point of control. Do we understand this? Can we please put 1 if this was useful and if you understand the current situation breakdown on 6E using the combination of volume profile, VWAP, and even the footprint chart right now? Let me know in the chat if that was useful. If you have any questions, great. Thank you so much for the feedback, David, Nemsar, Gorgas, Michael. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for the feedback. Fantastic. I love seeing this. Thank you so much. Okay, this is a time. Yeah, you can look for different confirmations. I don't always use for the P pattern. If it appears on the footprint, I'm gonna use it. If it doesn't appear, I'm gonna be using their class high delta, negative or positive clusters as well. Okay, perfect. Amazing. Amazing. Do we have any questions? This is a time to start asking questions. Okay. This is a time to start asking questions. if you have any. I honestly am not familiar with, I suppose, average VWAP. I'm not sure what you mean. Perhaps, yeah, you can use anything. I think someone can be profitable even with flipping the coin if you have a right risk management and if you have the big enough sample of data. So, but I prefer to use something that is reliable directly to the volume. So, I don't personally use TVAP. I use VWAP specifically for my analysis. Anchored. Okay, you mean anchored? Yes, you can use anchored. I use the indicator. So I don't use the anchored VWAP, but yes, you can, of course. If you find this more reliable and better statistically for your trading over a big sample of period of time, you can use TVAP or you can use the anchored VWAP if you prefer. Yes, I'm looking at the negative delta. So I don't always look for the P pattern or the B pattern, right? For some reason, my data is not connecting. I've been having difficulties with the stream today for some reason. Anyway, so I'm using this specific high volume cluster, negative delta cluster, as a short confirmation in this case. Not in this marathon, but yes, in the next one, we can definitely make a marathon about that. The program for this specific marathon is outlined and it's in the description by the link, and which was an announcement. Yes, this is a weekly profile. So this is a weekly volume profile and this is a weekly VWAP as well. So for intraday trading, I'm using the weekly VWAP and I'm using the weekly market profile and TPO, as well as I also have the point of control of the day here. And I also have the maximum levels for other things. So this is, for example, right here, right? The current point of control of the day is also above. One moment, I'm gonna adjust the setting here. Maxwell, I personally use Rhythmic. There is also the DX Suite. There is Rhythmic. So this is the reliable one I've never had problems with. Okay, so I've never had problem with the Rhythmic, for example. But there are many ones on the ARES, frequently asked questions, and on the blog. If you type the data feed in the search panel, it's going to give you a couple of articles where you can find the information on the reliable data feeds, which are recommended by ARES platform. The TPO means the time price opportunity. And as much as the volume profile is based on the volume, the TPO is implemented the amount of time that the price has spent for the formation in this specific period of the chart. So it's usually people related to the volume profile. It's a different calculation though. Yes, I personally run ARES on parallels. I run ARES for parallels, Przemku. Nie miałam z tym problemu przez ostatnie 5 lat. I don't know, Kyle. I cannot see any questions from you. So perhaps there is a filter that doesn't let your questions through. Unfortunately, I cannot see the question that you're asking. So Game Odyssey, I personally use a combination of the 30-minute time frame and the 5-minute time frame for the intraday trading. So I do my analysis over the weekend. I do my analysis on the weekly, daily, and the 4-hour time frames. So on these 3 time frames, I check how the week and the previous day was closed compared to the volumes. So I can see, did the price close above the average interest in volume, or did the price close below it? Maybe the price is consolidating on the weekly and the daily time frame, and then I'm going to stay away from the current market, or I'm going to apply my trading system for the trading in the range. Or if the price, for example, is below the major high volume node on the higher time frame, I will have the bearish bias for the next upcoming trading week as well. If the price is, for example, above the high volume node during the weekend on the weekly or daily time frame, then I'm going to be looking for the long bias over the next trading week. So over the weekend, I use a combination of weekly, daily, and 4 hours to determine my bias for the next upcoming trading week and build the scenarios. Later on, if I'm trading intraday during the week, from Monday to Friday, I use a combination of 30-minute time frame and 5-minute time frame. So on the 30-minute time frame, I do my whole analysis using different differences of volume-based tools in Adas platform. I also use, for example, cluster search. I use dynamic levels and so on and so on. And the 5-minute time frame I use when I already found the interesting zone for me. So this is literally the example. I identify the interesting zone from which to which I'm going to be trading. So then I'm also going to be looking for a buy here, for example, right? And the continuation to the upside. So I am looking for the zones of interest on 30-minute time frame. When the price approaches these zones, I go to the 5-minute footprint. I use footprint, delta colored, bid and ask delta colored, imbalances, stacked imbalances, cluster search, cluster statistics, cluster search, and the cumulative delta indicator, which we talked about on the previous marathon, to confirm my entry. And more about this and showing you in practice how to put all of this that we've been learning throughout the previous webinars and the marathon in one trading system, we will be doing starting from the next webinar. So the next 2 webinars are going to be about the execution, so how to execute the trade, and it's going to be about the building your trading system, combination of all of this in one system that you can take, go, apply, and trade successfully. In your volume clusters, can I use VP on that break string volume candle? Kyle, I don't know which candle you refer to. Which candle you refer to? On the 5-minute, 30-minute time frame? I don't, you need to specify it because I'm not, unfortunately, understanding which one you refer to. Yes, of course. Absolutely. Yes. So in this case, as you can see, that was a consolidation, that was a manipulation, and this start of the distribution. So we have the first leg, the correction, the second leg, the correction, the third leg. So this is a model that we were talking about on the first webinar of this specific marathon, IMD. Yes, I use the only CME. So, well, I mean, I trade on NYMEX, COMEX, right? CME. I don't trade crypto, so I trade the CME futures basically. The break candle out of the consolidation, 30-minute, 1 hour time frame. So you're referring to the 6E. Well, which one? This one, this one, this one? The first one, the second one, or the third one? Hey, welcome. I am. Welcome from I am. Carl, you really need to specify the time because it's quite difficult. If you have any more questions, please let me know. While you are typing the questions and Kyle is specifying which candle he's looking at, let's recap the key points from today's marathon session. And the VWAP, first of all, VWAP is your go-to intraday benchmark for price relative to the volume. And you can use it to judge the bias above or below the VWAP and the deviations, to time entries on pullbacks in training moves, or finding the reversions in the reversals, right? And the beginning of the range. So it's not the predictive indicator, so it's not the leading indicator. The VWAP is a coincidental indicator, so you need to know. But by the correct usage, it can tell you who is likely in control, and it serves as a support or resistance and rejection point. Volume profile, on the other hand, uncovers the hidden structure of the market by highlighting where volume was significant, right? So you can use it to identify the key price zones, like we did, for example, then as 6E right here, which is already pulling back. So that's already our analysis is playing out perfectly in front of your eyes in combination with volume profile and VWAP on Ares platform. And you can use the VWAP versus volume profile essentially to complement those together, because the VWAP show stands for the value over time, and volume profile stands for the value over price. So the standard deviation bands of the VWAP, which is this one, the first deviation and the bottom lower deviation, also act as an automatic support resistance in combination with the middle line of VWAP, which is the bold black line. So trend versus range. So for example, right here, this is a very important piece of the information as well. So right here, the price is ranging. Right here, the price is already trending. It's ranging, it's trending, okay? So if the VWAP is slow, like getting close to each other, and the lines, the deviations of the VWAP get closer to the middle point, that's a range, and you do not want to trade in this kind of situation. If the deviation lines extend and the price goes away from the VWAP middle line, that's a trend. And then you apply the strategy, which is based on the trend, right? If you're using the anchored VWAP specifically, it anchors it to the significant events or areas. So for example, the session start, the breakout of consolidation and news, to isolate the market's average price from this specific event that is disturbing the overall volume picture. So it's like resetting the scale to measure that practical move. And you can use the anchored VWAP if you find it more useful for your specific strategies. So in conclusion, combining tools together, so VWAP, volume profile, and footprint gives you the major confluence. The best trades often come when multiple tools agree between themselves. So for example, price pulls back to the VWAP, and that price is known support from volume profile, and maybe it's also yesterday's close. So those three independent reasons, the buyers might step in the market. Okay, so those are your high probability setups that we are looking at. So as a side note, okay, the question is, who of you are going after this webinar to go and try out the combination of VWAP and volume profile? If you're going to give it a try, the combination of VWAP, volume profile, and footprint after this webinar, can you please put that plus in the chat? I'm going to answer a couple of your other questions, and we're going to be slowly wrapping up our today's webinar. Absolutely me. Yes, thank you so much. Nemsa, Alena, thank you. Ali is also going to give it a try. Thank you so much. Kostek, Dmitry, David, great, thank you. Amazing, already using it, fantastic. Good for you. Me too. Yes, Ravi, there is no need to spam the chat. I saw your comment, and I mentioned in the beginning of the webinar that some traders do this. They use yesterday's VWAP closing price as a reference, as a support or resistance for this specific day. I personally do not use it, but yes, you can do it. Like, for example, if you go to the GC, for example, this is going to be your reference point for the upper deviation for today. Now, I would only use it if there would be the high volume node. Like, for example, this was a situation. This is a yesterday's VWAP closure. Let's extend it, right? And here is a high volume node because of this consolidation. So right here was a conclusion between the weekly point of control, the high volume node for the previous week, and their VWAP closure from the week earlier. So here was a great sell entry, for example, because there was a conclusion between the VWAP last week, the weekly point of control from last week, the high volume node, and even right here, the upper deviation test. So that is another setup that you can be using. And Ravi, correct. Yes. Іван, дуже дякую за такий зворотній зв'язок. Мені дуже-дуже приємно. Kyle, I use a break on the 30-minute time frame. But yes, on the hourly time frame as well. I don't know if this is what you mean exactly, but on the hourly time frame, for example, that was also the confluence for our ID on an analysis on 6E futures, on the euro futures, because we see that 2 long weeks of rejection and the next candle is forming as a bearish candle now. Thank you so much, Game Mode. You say fantastic. Thank you, Nemsa. I really appreciate the feedback. Thank you so much. Let me quickly check if I didn't miss any questions. Hi, Lou. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the feedback, and I'm really glad that you are enjoying and finding these marathons useful. We will continue. The next 2 sessions are going to be about putting all of this together, and the last one will be the Q&A to definitely make sure that every single one of you is comfortable enough to go and apply it in practice. Remember that those are practice-based marathons. Everything that we are talking about here, everything that I bring to all the marathons are the things that I'm using in my own trading. It's not another theoretical ebook or another course where you are learning something that is not practically applicable. Everything is in ATAS is developed by traders for traders. And we are doing it to make sure that you can also see the information about the market, answering yourself a question why. Not only how, but only really deeply understanding the core of the market auction theory, how the price is formed, and how you can join the big players in the market and become a profitable trader, standing out of 90% of other traders around the world. So thank you so much for being here with us today. We essentially, learned today the combination of 2 very powerful, even 3 with a footprint trading systems. Make sure that you go apply it in practice, because on the simulator, for example, because the next time you trade, you can incorporate then this combination into your trading plan. So remember that listening is not enough. Open your ATAS platform, download the workspace that will be shared in the description to this video 30 minutes after the end of the webinar. And if you found this webinar helpful, please give us the thumbs up on the channel and consider subscribing it for more advanced trading content, because we have more webinars like this coming. And please share your feedback with us, with me, in the comments. We really appreciate it, and our team will respond. If you have any questions, also don't hesitate to ask all of those and bring them to the next marathon, the next webinar. I'm going to be right here to help you. Thank you so much. Let's wrap up our VWAP plus volume profile session. Go forth, analyze your own charts, implement the workspace, import it in your own trading space, and may your VWAP be forever in your favor and the volume nodes be strong. So thank you so much again for your time, for your attention. Happy trading, everyone. I'll see you on the next one.